Before we get started, let's take a quick look at the 4 basic ingredients that go into brewing your beer. First up is water. Now, I generally prefer bottled water with most of my beers because the tap water here is hard and can impart a harsh flavor. In this case, since I'm brewing an IPA today, I'm not too particularly concerned and will use tap water for today's brew. Next is grain. This particular grain has already been crushed. The grain is the source of the starches and sugars that the yeast will ultimately convert into carbon dioxide and alcohol. Next is yeast. There are many different varieties of yeast, but they can generally be classified into ale yeast, which are top fermenting, and lager yeast, which are bottom fermenting. Since today I'm doing an IPA, I'm using a top fermenting yeast, or an ale yeast. It should be noted that the strain of yeast will impart a particular flavor and aroma on the final product of a beer, and choosing the correct yeast is an important part of the overall brewing process. That said, for people just starting out, pretty much any old beer yeast will work, but as you try to brew a particular style of beer, you'll want to pay attention to the yeast that you're using in each particular brew. Next up are hops. Hops impart both aroma and the bitterness to beer. These happen to be Victoria's Secret hops out of Australia. They have a high bittering content, or alpha, which means that for every ounce of hops, there will be a lot more of that bitterness in the final product, measured in IBUs, or International Bittering Units. Most IPAs are significantly hopped to give you that nice afterbite in the finish when you're drinking it. There's also a few other ingredients that are used from time to time. Adjuncts, such as honey, fruits, and other additives, are used in certain styles of beer. And also, although not an ingredient, sanitizer and your sanitation is an important part of the brewing process. Make sure your equipment is sanitized before use. That way you do not introduce bacteria, wild yeast strains, fungus, mold, and other non-desirables into your brewing process.